working remotely, and using technology differently. We have become teachers for our kids, shoppers for our elderly parents, and counselors for our family and friends. Through all of this, our staff, each of you, have stood ready and responsive to supporting the individuals we serve, whether in Pennsylvania, Louisiana, or South Dakota, whether in our residential, mobile, or outpatient programs, or in our IDD, BHH, or primary care service lines. Our staff have continued to reflect their commitment, their compassion, and their care in the support provided to the individuals we serve and each other. Behind the scenes, our administrative functions have been working hard to ensure our staff are supported across the country. Our divisional leadership teams, as well as our shared service departments like benefits, human resources, payroll, risk management, and IT, just to name a few, are providing the much needed support, direction, and leadership at this time. I extend my deepest gratitude to all of our staff. Our values have been what makes RHD special. How we approach our work and what makes us different than other providers, and how we bounce back when things go differently than desired. It is important that our values continue to guide what we do during these challenging times. Respect, creativity, multi-level thinking, empowerment of groups, and honesty and trust are key during these stressful, challenging circumstances. Today, we will be sharing with you stories within RHD that confirm our values are guiding us, and I'm so thankful for that. Over the weekend, I heard this quote: "Today, the coronavirus has thrown us all in the mud. We are cold, wet, and miserable, and the dawn seems a long way off. But while we should not be cavalier about the dangers of this pandemic, neither should we feel hopeless and paralyzed with fear. Hope abounds." This is a quote from William H. McRaven, a retired Navy admiral, speaking to the importance of working together during tough times, supporting each other to provide hope that this difficult time will pass. I will be sharing the full op-ed later, and I hope it inspires you as it did to me. Thank you again for all that you're doing during this difficult time. While I know that at times it will feel like leadership is not doing enough or that your leadership needs to do more, please trust that I'm working closely with leadership to ensure that we do everything possible to support you, your families, and the individuals we serve. The duration of this pandemic is unknown, as well as the short-term and long-term impact. New information is available every day, including new federal, state, local, and funder direction and requirements. We will keep you updated all along the way. Our goal today is to share information, provide updates, and answer questions. We will be covering a variety of topics, including personal protective equipment, PPE, paid time off, unemployment, and other program protocols. And we will be answering questions that have been submitted prior to this call as well. As Sean will share, we are not tooled today to answer questions that are submitted during the call, but I assure you, we will continue to provide needed information. We hear you and we're listening. Thank you. At this time, I'll pass it off to Sean, who will go through some housekeeping, and then we'll start to go through the agenda.
Great. Thank you very much, Marco. I appreciate that beginning as well as that context. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Mott, and I am within the Learning and Development Department. As Marco stated, I'm just going to share a few expectations as it relates to this call today, as well as our time together. I start before actually diving into the managing expectations by talking about, as Marco stated, we find ourselves in a peculiar kind of situation as a company, as well as a world. And with that, I would ask that each of you help to share a level of patience as we try to figure out and iron out some of the kinks of some of the new ways in which we're communicating and operating. Many things we will do well, and there's some things we will stumble. But through it all, we're going to get through this together. So as far as managing expectations, one of the things that I wanted to share was that throughout this call, in an effort to manage the feedback and the technology, all lines will be centrally muted during the call. However, speakers will have the opportunity to speak and their lines will be unmuted at the appropriate time. In addition to that, you will not have the feature of muting or unmuting your phone, as that too has been disabled. Unfortunately, because of the volume of people that are on the call and because of our resource capacity, we're unable to support any type of technical challenges you might face in using Zoom. If at any time you experience any technical challenges, we would ask that you reference the teleconference call number, the audio call number that was included in the meeting invite. And hopefully that would minimize any disruption you might have in participating in this call. And then finally, as Marco has stated, in an effort to manage this efficiently and as effectively as possible, all questions will be managed at a later date that are presented during this call. You do have the option to submit a question based on what you're hearing and what you're experiencing as it relates to COVID-19 in this update. Know that once those questions are received, they will be disseminated and managed, responded to, and either in an email or in the next call, you will have answers to those questions. With that said, I'm going to pass the baton back to Marco as we're going to begin with our agenda overview. And I also neglected to mention my role as a facilitator. I'm going to work with our senior leadership to help just manage our time so that we can have this as most effective as possible and as impactful as possible for you, the listener. Thank you. Marco?
Thank you, Sean. So we have several items that we wanted to cover today. As I said, our goal is to provide information, share updates, and answer questions. So Baroness will be starting us off with sharing some of the awesome work that we're doing within the organization and how our staff are going above and beyond during this time of crisis. We'll hear from Christy Katz-Freeman and Susan Hunt in ways that we can all be taking care of ourselves during this time. And then we'll get into conversations around PTO and unemployment with Alicia, and also our programmatic response specific to what does quarantine mean, what does isolation mean, and how are we responding to scenarios that require either one. We have some other agenda topics as time permits, and we'll save the end of the session to make sure that we leave enough time to answer the questions you've already asked. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Baroness, who's going to spend some time with us sharing the stories about all the awesome work we're doing within the organization. Baroness?
Thank you, Marco. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Baroness Martin. I am the Vice President of Culture, Diversity, and Inclusion. I want to just take a minute before I share a story to thank all of you for the hard work and commitment that's being done while we're working together under these very difficult conditions. We want to recognize some of our heroes, and while everybody is doing the work of heroes, I'm specifically talking today about the DSPs and the frontline staff showing tremendous care and courage to ensure the health, safety, and the needs of the people we support. I want to thank you for going through great lengths and following the protocols, going above and beyond, and the teamwork that is necessary during these trying times. So we received several stories of courage and great work that we're doing in the midst of this COVID crisis, and I wanted to share one in particular with you today. This comes from Sandy Ringbaum from Metro Act team in New Orleans, and she wrote, "I just wanted to share with you an example of true teamwork. In January, Metro Act Team 2 has a client that requires 5 days a week. This client is blind, so Medicaid transportation is not an option because they do not go to individual apartments. The client is supposed to meet Medicaid transportation outside. The only support this client has is the elderly mother, and so she cannot help with getting him from radiation. My team has stepped up and risen to the occasion. Since January, MCAT2 has transported the client to and from radiation treatments 5 days a week. Even during Mardi Gras, when the New Orleans teams were off, MCAT2 team members brought this client to radiation because he could not miss any treatments. In order for this task to not fall on just 1 or 2 staff members, the rest of the teams and staff members have stepped in, and a different staff member brings the client to radiation each day of the week. It is amazing for me to see the entire team step up and support each other. Even now, during this time of fear and uncertainty, one team member is still bringing this client to his treatments 5 days a week. We called this client's doctor to see if anyone could offer any assistance during this time of COVID-19, and the answer was no, and that he could not stop his treatments. We called his MCO to see if they could offer assistance, and we have not heard back from the MCO. Therefore, we have one team member who's going to bring him to his treatments all week in order to minimize exposure to all involved. I just wanted to share this with you because I don't see these stories get shared enough, and things like this don't always get reflected. This is what it's all about and how hard the frontline staff work. This client's radiation was initially supposed to be for 9 weeks, but now it will be even longer. And the MCAT team too will be there for him. I'm truly honored to have a team who's so caring and compassionate and truly love what they do and absolutely care about the clients they serve. I want to encourage each of you to share your stories today. I know it's a difficult time, and not many of us have the time to sit down and write about all the wonderful things that are going on within the corporation and the work that we're doing that's values-based and really display who we are as an organization. But I do want you to take the time and just drop a few lines if you get the chance. Send it to your voice, also to your managers, your regional directors, your EVPs, or the CPOs. Let them know of some of the great success stories that are going on during this COVID time. We have a lot of challenges before us, but we also have some great things that are going on that we can share to keep one another encouraged. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, Baroness. And thank you to all of our DSPs out there that are on the front line doing what you do best during these really difficult times. We are all very appreciative of it. We're going to move on now to taking care of ourselves, as well as supporting the individuals that we serve every day during this time. So Christy and Susan are going to share some opportunities for us. You're on, Christy.
Hi, everybody. First, I have to say thank you to technology, because those of you who know me, I am an extreme extrovert, and so working from home for me is very difficult. I need to see you, I need to touch you, I need to talk. Allison Ledbetter, your hair is amazing. I need you to know that. And so these are the type of things that I need in my day. So, oh, I'm nervous. There's too many people on the call. Okay, so I want to remind everybody of a couple of things. Well, first, thanks for all of you who've reached out and who have been taking advantage of Helping Hands. All of our therapists are available by phone, video, or whatever means of technology that you have. I too am available. You can email me. I'm getting all of my calls and I'm returning them as I get them. And I want to also remind you to go to the COVID site on my RHD, because we're putting up, Susan and I, lots of great information and webinars and things that you can do for yourself or with your family or with the participants that you're with. And some of them are on mindfulness and some of them are on yoga or other things. And I don't know, just check out what we have when you have a moment. And then the next thing I wanted to just add is, if anybody would like to set up a Zoom meeting just to talk, invite me to every single one. I'll come. I'm desperate to see all of you. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Christy. Hi, everybody. So my name is Susan Hunt. I'm a clinical director in behavioral health and housing and a member of RHD's Department of Clinical Innovation and Quality, also known as DCIC. As we continue to develop plans for the health and safety of our participants and staff, the effects of more social isolation, changes in routine, anxiety we all have around the virus, and increased stress on everyone will increasingly affect the emotional and behavioral health of our participants and ourselves as staff. So on behalf of the DCIC group, I wanted to make you aware of a few things that are happening now to provide additional opportunities for information and consultation and support. So first, we are scheduling Zoom meeting times each week, both during the day and evening times to accommodate schedules, to address the impact of this crisis for our participants, as well as for ourselves and our families. The goals here are to provide useful, practical strategies to take back and share both at our units and at home. Some examples of some things we'll cover are how to communicate facts about COVID-19 and social distancing with our participants, managing the effects of changes in routine and normal activities for all of us, and sharing strategies like lists of in-home activities and creating schedules in light of the restrictions we're experiencing. Second, clinical directors from each division will be continuing to reach out to our programs and providing support, clinical supervisions, and consultation for specific situations that arise. Also, we're working now to help programs continue their evidence-based practices, such as DBT skills groups, by engaging telehealth applications and making sure folks have a checklist and best practices for providing telehealth in those situations. Finally, we are going to be continuing to post information, as Christy said, information that you can use on RHD's COVID-19 website, and hopefully posting recordings of our Zoom meeting consultations for those of you unable to make these meetings live. So that's my update for today. I guess I'll pass it back to Sean. Thanks.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Baroness, and thank you, Susan. At this time, we're going to now move to major topic areas, and we'll start with Alicia, who will provide an update regarding PTO, paid time off, and unemployment. Alicia?
Can you hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, great. Thank you. So again, my name is Alicia Smith, the Chief Human Resource Officer for RHD, and I'm so glad to see so many people that came back for our call today for this meeting. It has been a tough week, and I know that everyone has been trying to get through it as best they can. This has been an unprecedented time for us. Most of us in our lifetime have never seen something like this. And so we are learning as we go as a country, as a world actually, but as a country specifically and as an organization. So we thank everyone for your patience and for just continuing to kind of stay the course, even though this is both professionally and personally challenging for many of us. It's something that we've never done or had to do before. So again, wanted to come and share quite a bit of information. I'm going to try to do it as quickly and succinctly as possible. We have been tirelessly working behind the scenes to try to create resources, documents, and places where people can go to get information, as we've gotten all of your calls and your emails across our departments. Benefits, payroll, HR has been flooded with messages and are trying the best they can to get back to everyone. As you might imagine, there's quite a few people reaching out. And so over the weekend, this morning was mailed out, but over the weekend we were able to put out a benefits FAQ. So it's available on the COVID-19 site. It was emailed out and it's accessible to everyone in a PDF form to be able to go and to answer some of the most frequently asked questions that we see coming in through the benefits line, but also some of the questions that came up in last week's call. So I just wanted to kind of go over a few things specifically related to PTO and unemployment so that as we are all working through this, all of our staff have access to as much information about all of the supports that are available both inside of RHD but also outside of RHD. We feel very strongly that our staff need to know about everything that's available to them, even though it's kind of challenging to maybe think of the possibility of accessing those supports. But we operate from the assumption it's better for you to know than not know. So if you have gotten the FAQ, we are asking that you share it, email it, print it, hand it out to staff across the corporation. Not everyone accesses their email or is going to access the COVID-19 site, but we're asking that you please make sure that you share that information and pass it along to as many people as possible. There's a few things I want to highlight for some scenario states. So let's take the PTO scenario first. So again, as we shared last week, we are making PTO available for everyone that you would have earned this year. Is made available to you to use now. We are still, and we'll hope to have this finalized within the next 2 days, trying to figure out if there's a way to increase the amount of sick time. And when I speak PTO, let me just be clear. I'm speaking about sick time that we are advancing for you to be able to use now. Even if you have not accrued it yet. We have new employees that have emailed us and said, well, I just started. I haven't yet earned the ability to use sick time. We are making sick time that you would have accrued through December of this year available for you to use for this crisis. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear of that. We are also looking at finding a way to increase the amount of sick time that every employee will have available to them to make sure that everyone will have at least 2 weeks. We hope to have the answer on that within the next few days, and we will get back to you with that information so you are aware. If you have already carried over and or earned vacation time as well, that's available to use of course, but your first course would be to use your sick time. If your program has closed, there are some day programs where the state has required them to close. I'm seeing someone not be able to hear me, but the state requires your day program to close or any other programs or services like that where you have been required to close, then you have available to use your paid time off. You are also available to use unemployment benefits that are being released by the federal government to others in the same situation, not just at RHD, but all across the country. A few things you should know about unemployment as I move to unemployment benefits. The regulations or restrictions related to unemployment have been somewhat modified. Typically, there's at least a 1 week wait period for unemployment benefits. That's been modified so that you don't have that 1 week wait period because everyone is struggling and may need to access those benefits in this crisis. You don't need to be terminated or laid off to access unemployment. So there are some who have reduced hours because their schedules, their work has had to be modified as a result of COVID-19. So therefore, they have released the restriction that you have to be terminated or that you have to be laid off in order to apply. As long as you can document, and they'll go through the process of documenting what your average hours are, that you have had reduced hours, you will be able to apply for those benefits. These are state and federal benefits and funds, and they will make determinations on whether, how much you're eligible for and so forth. We don't have control over that, but we need to make sure that you guys are aware that as we get through this difficult time over the next couple of weeks and months, that you are availing yourself of all the financial supports and resources that are being made available across the country for and workers in every industry. There are some service lines and service types that have not been, that have not ceased services because by government, they are considered to be essential operations, essential services. Those programs are continuing to run because of the nature of the needs of the individuals that we support, and government has identified that as such. But if you look on any list that many of the governors are putting out, you see that under human services, social services, those identified as essential services are continued to operate even in lockdown situations for cities and states. So we want to make sure that you're aware of those because of the fact that those situations may not be eligible for unemployment if your hours were not reduced or if that work is still available. Unemployment goes through their normal process of vetting that. As you apply for benefits, make sure that you indicate that you have had a reduction due to COVID-19, and that is what will qualify you to have some of these other exceptions applied to you. So I just wanted to make sure I share that information. Again, please take a look at the FAQ that was sent out to everyone today. We want to make sure that you are accessing that for your information, that you are as aware as possible. Hopefully that document was helpful to people and easily to understand. If you have any additional questions, please let us know. Continue to email us at benefits@rhd.org, and we will continue to try to respond to those as we're getting to them. Our benefits team is working around the clock and has expanded their hours to include 7:30 in the morning all the way through to the early evening to try to get to everyone's emails and responses, as well as your program and divisional leadership are available as well for any questions you have specifically related to your particular program. So I wanted to make sure that hopefully that answers the questions as possible. We do have some unanswered questions that came in, or some questions for this call that came in. I believe that our FAQ does respond to most of them. And we'll have some time to get to those as well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Or I'm getting to those now. Okay, all right, great. Thank you all so much for your work, and thank you for your patience and kind of just bearing with us as we work together to get through this, this crisis.
Thank you, Alicia. As a friendly reminder, and just as Alicia also mentioned, because we're not fielding questions real time at this time, you are encouraged to submit your questions through the chat feature. Know that we'll collect them and we will respond to them at a later date. At this time, I'm going to pass it over to June, who's going to speak to us about quarantine versus isolation. So June's going to speak to us about that dynamic, and I'll pass it over to June.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Okay. Thanks everyone for your time today. Just a few words about quarantine and isolation. There seems to be some confusion. By the way, I'm Jean Hodges, the Director of Risk Management. So isolation separates sick individuals with a contagious disease from individuals who are not, whereas quarantine separates and restricts their movement of individuals who were exposed to a contagious disease. I'm going to go into a couple points, do's and don'ts about what staff should do versus how we should handle things with our clients, and just some main points. So if staff exhibit signs of COVID-19, that's the fever, the cough, difficulty breathing, they are to not to come to work. They should contact their healthcare provider and not return to work until they are symptom-free for at least 72 hours without the use of fever-reducing or other symptom-altering medicines like cough suppressants or ibuprofen. So if you're not taking any of those and you're still symptom-free for 72 hours, then you certainly can come back to work after that. They should practice self-quarantine until any confirmed COVID-19 is from a test result. And then once they do confirm, they should practice isolation. So as far as our individuals, if they've been exposed or there's a known case that they've been with somebody or someone in their family has it and they were with them recently, then we should quarantine that person. This may require a removal to another location or within the site itself. We're trying to keep individuals with the same status housed until confirmation of test results indicate an active infection. When there is this active infection confirmed, then isolation procedures should be implemented. Because of the various setups for each program, I believe the divisional leadership has worked with the area directors to come up with plans for each type of program so that there's suitable arrangements for either quarantine or isolation procedures. So please check in with your supervisor to determine what you're supposed to do for each respective program. In both situations, only staff who are in protective gear, that's the PPE, gloves, gowns, and masks, should be allowed to go into the space. Reversing process when leaving and disposing of PPE per recommendations. Obviously, visitors should not be allowed in sight under either circumstance. And again, checking with your supervisor for the appropriate procedures given those conditions as recommended. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, June. I appreciate your sharing that information regarding isolation versus quarantine. Right now, we're going to pass it to Stephanie Pompey, who's also going to give us an update as it relates to property planning. In addition to that, we'll also hear from Sandy Coxkills, who will share with us work on getting needed supplies. This time, I'll pass it over to Stephanie.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Stephanie Pompey. I just want to give you a very brief update regarding what we are doing in the event that some of the things that June just shared with you were to come to pass. As many of you know, we do have vacant property, either owned or leased property throughout the company. And what we are doing is assessing each of those properties to outfit them in the event that we would need to either for a few people or for multiple people, have a place to provide quarantine and isolation. The decision as to where someone would go or what they will do will depend on the individual emergency plans that have been put in place throughout the programs. Simply want to make you aware that this is an additional option. As some of you know, some of our emergency plans involve the need for Red Cross shelters to be up. So this is something that we are doing in addition to looking at area hotels, hoping to leverage our national buying power to provide a safe and comfortable place in the event that we need to isolate or quarantine. Many of our property do require possibly a lot of construction, and a lot of that has been halted. However, we do have some options, and I will be able to provide you with additional information as we move through this process, where we will just need to order furniture and allow multiple individuals or families to be safely housed. We are still accepting questions, so if you do have questions, you can put it into the chat room, and those questions will be answered either throughout the week or next week. With that, I'm tossing it to Sandy.
It appears that Sandy may be having some technical difficulties. We'll give her another moment to chime in, and if she continues to experience technical difficulties, we'll pass it on to Alicia, Sandy, June, and Bernie for the Q&A section. We'll give Sandy another moment. Sandy, are you available?
While Sandy is getting herself unmuted or hopefully resolving her microphone issues, Sandy's going to be talking to us about personal protective equipment. We know that this is a source of anxiety, and it is an extremely important subject because we are essentially asking people, and we talked about some of the heroes earlier, but this is a heroic task. Sandy will jump on as soon as she can, but if she doesn't, I just need everyone to know that in addition to the normal channels to obtain this equipment, we are reaching out, being creative, and trying to find any kind of way to do this. So we are ordering directly to stores and having folks that may not be essential personnel, but would still like to work to go pick them up locally. We are looking into alternatives to gowning, looking to alternatives to masks. In addition, we are also placing orders. So we have a number of orders placed, and Sandy has the specifics on that. So we have orders in place already for additional equipment that will be delivered. In the meantime, we are also going to retain some of the protective clothing that will be used in the event of a confirmed case of COVID-19. We want to hold on to that so that if our DSPs and others have to work hand in hand with people with a confirmed diagnosis, they and their families can be as safe as possible. So that would consist of the gowns, the properly rated masks, as well as shoe covers and or full piece hazmat suits. If you are aware of a vendor or anyone who might have access and care to donate or sell to RHD appropriate and CDC approved protective clothing, please reach out and contact Sandy.
Yes,
Her email.
I'm on now.
There you go. See, I was
I don't know what happened. It kept saying I was being muted by the host. So I apologize. I'm Sandy Cox-Gales, the Executive Vice President for PA Behavioral Health and Housing. And Stephanie, thank you, because you're correct. First of all, I want to thank every single staff person out there, because this is a very difficult time. This is something that we've never dealt with before. And so there's a lot of unknowns, but we are trying to prepare ourselves for that reason, because there's lots of unknowns. So I appreciate everybody sticking together and really working together as a team to get through this. I just want to put some numbers on what Stephanie said. I know that everybody has been watching the news, so I'm sure it's not news to you to know that a lot of things are in high demand. Masks, protective suits, shoe covers, bleach, even toilet tissue. And so myself and a group of others are scouring and leveraging and doing everything that we can to make sure things are available for staff. So far, and just so you know, I really do appreciate other programs jumping in and pitching in to give us needed gowns and things of that nature. So at this point, we've given out 300 masks. And what we are really looking to do is to make sure everybody has everything that they need. But I really think at the same time, so I think we need to focus on medically fragile, people with immune deficiencies and so forth and so on. And we just want to make sure that everybody is safe and everybody has what they need. So at this point, we have 550 boxes of gloves coming in on March the 29th. We have 75 protective suits coming in on March the 30th, 1,000 shoe covers, 20 cases of bleach, 20 cases of gloves. We've been donated cases of toilet paper
from other programs, and we've been also donated gowns from other programs. So everybody, you know, I've sent out a plea to everyone who can help. Also to call your neighborhood Walmarts and so forth, because these are things that are going to be needed. But in the meantime, if you want to reach out to myself, please feel free to do so at Sandra@rhd.org, and I'm happy to help if I can. But I did want to highlight one thing, and just to let you know what the suits and the various protective gear is for. They're being used to only when an active case of COVID-19 or if someone has been quarantined. There is a task force assembled to track orders and determine distribution of programs in need. We are sharing items and stock surpluses and identifying places where these things could be redistributed. So I'm reaching out to all of the suppliers, even our contractors and other folks who have the ability to share. We also reached out to our funder, and our funder, we've given our funder an order for supplies as well. So we are doing everything that we can to make sure that all staff are safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, Stephanie, for that update as well. As a friendly reminder, please continue to send in your questions, and those questions will be answered at a later time. I'm seeing a lot of questions that are coming in, which is good, and we will focus on collecting them and responding. At this time, we're going to shift to Alicia, Bernie, June, and Sandy again, who will respond to questions that we received over the week, as well as any outstanding questions from last week. We'll first start with Alicia, who will share her responses to the questions that we received that pertain to matters concerning staff. Alicia?
Great. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Again, this is Alicia Smith, the Chief Human Resource Officer. We received a couple of questions that came in following the meeting last week and following the responses to last week's unanswered questions that went out. As well as from, I believe these came in actually prior to the benefit FAQ, so some have been answered, but I'll make sure that I answer those questions as they extend. So let me read the question so that everyone is clear what the question is, and then we can go from there. So there was a question related to whether or not if you have a doctor's note from your doctor saying that being at your workplace puts you at risk for COVID-19 due to asthma, are you allowed to take off without having to worry about losing your job? So the answer to that is that our existing FMLA law rules are still in place. If you have an illness that prevents you from working, you have the ability to apply for FMLA. And so while every employee has the right to apply for FMLA and short-term disability, which is how that gets paid, are not guaranteed to be approved. So we just want to make sure that you are aware of that, that the way that your position is protected is through the Family Medical Leave Act, and there have been some expansions of that act. They don't necessarily relate specifically to this, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that that is an application process. Your doctor has to submit paperwork, and that there is not a guarantee, but you can definitely, you have the right to apply. So just want to make sure that everyone knows that. And then the second question came in that was related to hazard pay. And there's a question or statement, question, whichever way we put it. I believe staff should be paid more for their role if such a situation arises that they have to work around the client if they test positive and are affected, because staff would be definitely putting themselves at risk. So we are exploring options for hazard pay, as many organizations are, and we hope to conclude on that this week. So we're going to be considering this based on the needs of each service type and each service line across RHD, as well as whatever resources we have available. So we're going to take a look at that. It requires some coordination with your program leadership, your chief program officers, as well as some of your divisional staff, as well as the finance team. So we will take a look at that hopefully this week and drawing some conclusions related to what our ability is to cover that, as well as some of the other requests we've received, like PTO and so forth. And I'm going to kick it over to Sandy, who has the next question.
Yes. Okay, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Okay, the next question was, what is the process if we do not have gowns and masks? As I said earlier, right now we are trying our very best to make sure that everyone has what they need. At the same time, your directors will be getting an email from me asking if there are gowns available, and if there's not, we're going to make sure that we get either the gowns or the protective suits for folks to use. But remember what I said earlier, when the gowns and when the protective suits and different PPEs are to be used. I mean, if you have a perfectly well individual, I wouldn't expect to see staff with PPEs on. So, and then the other question was, I have a question, hope you can answer it or clarify where the PPEs are coming from. As they're coming from everywhere, quite frankly, everywhere and anywhere we can get them. So they could be coming from Walmart, they could be coming from Home Depot, wherever we can get them from our regular medical distributors, because that, you know, everyone is having a tough time getting these. So they're coming from many places. We have a lot of people working on this to either deliver them to our office in Philadelphia or deliver them wherever we need to in the United States. So the rest of the question is basically around the PPEs, and I think we talked quite a bit about that. Stephanie did, and so did I. But if you have additional questions, again, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to get back to you. Thank you.
So it's Bernie Glavin. I'm an executive vice president for the IDD division. I have two questions, and I won't read the question, but I will summarize what folks are asking. The first question is, shouldn't a nurse be placed in all the sites? Because the consumers and staff are putting themselves at risk, and the staff may not be appropriately trained to deal with anything of this nature. So again, I'll start by, I think, repeating something that everyone said already. But we understand that the fear and the anxiety around this. We've never had to deal with anything like this before, and we're all doing the best that we can, and we appreciate all the hard work and dedication. However, as long as an individual is not exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19, and that would be a persistent cough, a fever, or respiratory distress, there's really no need for any additional specialized staffing or training. Really what it comes down to is the appropriate use of universal precautions. Washing your hands frequently, and I can't stress the word frequently enough. Cleaning surfaces with sanitizing products frequently. And again, you know, the information we're hearing is that sometimes infections can live on the surface for up to a couple of days. So really it's about cleaning the surfaces and then cleaning your hands on a very frequent basis, and then appropriately disposing of the materials that you use to clean. I'm assuming that everybody has had the universal precautions training. While none of us have any free time, it would be a good idea maybe to talk to your peers, to take some time to jump on Cornerstone if you can, to talk to your supervisors, and just refresh everybody's memory of the appropriate steps that we should be taking with universal precautions, because really that's what's required to prevent the spread of any germs or viruses like COVID-19. The second question that I had was related. Well, let me grab it. And it's basically saying that my family, as well as my staff's family, are as important as the individuals we serve. And none of us are interested in taking the coronavirus home. So again, we understand that. We understand the fear and anxiety that comes with that. And we also understand that, you know, we've never, and someone mentioned it earlier, we've never had a deal with something like this in our lifespan anyway. Please know that we understand that we're asking you to balance your health, your family's health, and the care that all of our individuals need. Please also understand that as we're asking you to provide these services, that in no way minimizes our concern for your health or that of your family. Responses have been overwhelming. Folks have been dedicated and creative. Again, universal precautions is really the key to using here. The other thing we're doing is we're currently developing guidelines for you to use when you're entering or leaving the programs, and recommendations that you can use when you're entering your home after you've been at work. We're reviewing what the different hospital systems are using as recommendations for their staff. We're cross-referencing those recommendations with the CDC and other healthcare organizations, and we hope to have those guidelines posted on the RHD COVID site probably by the middle of this week. Again, we appreciate people's questions. We understand the angst. Please keep the questions coming because they really are very helpful.
I had a question. It's Jean Hodges again, Director of Risk Management. Somebody was asking if an employee goes out of the country for vacation and returns to the US, is the corporation requiring they self-quarantine? And if so, how long? And if they can work from home via VPN, are they allowed to get their PCs from the office during this time? Well, I'm sure everyone's seen all sorts of news releases about travel regulations, particularly federal regulations as they apply to foreign travel, been halted. However, if an individual is returning to the US, depending upon where they're traveling from, they are required to self-quarantine upon arrival back into the US for 14 days at home or in a guarded facility for those considered at higher risk of spreading the disease. And there's certain countries that are on that list. After a virus-free quarantine period, they can check with their supervisor to see if their work is considered essential and then make arrangements to secure a laptop. Again, anything about isolation and quarantine, we have a fact sheet on the COVID-19 site for your reference. You can check in on that.
I think I have the next question, and it's in reference to program staffing, multiple staff out and stay at home order. The question is, hello, just wondering what we will do if multiple staff members call out at once. What if there is a stay at home order put in place? Where will the individuals go? So the first part of that question is we've made arrangements with the various temp agencies, at least 4 of them off the top of my head, and they all have said that they have staff that they could send to us if we need it. The other thing is we will continue to operate as we normally do as best as we can with the letter. If it comes down to being stopped by police or being stopped by the guards, what are they called? I'm sorry. Anyway, being stopped by authorities. We have a letter prepared for each staff person to either take a picture of it or take it with them, download it. You can also go to the COVID website for that as well. So the staff would still come to work because folks still need the care. And so we do our best to make sure you're protected in that way. So if there's any other questions, again, please send them my way.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Alicia again. Alicia Smith, your Chief HR Officer. Our next question that came in, the next questions relate to PTO, which again, I believe we've answered, but I'll read them just to make sure that everyone is aware. And again, ask you to share the FAQ that was sent out, as well as the answers to last week's questions. And when you get this week's questions, so please share them as well. So the first question, the next question is, how long will employees get paid if their program is closed and they run out of PTO time? Should they apply for unemployment now? Will anybody be addressing that in an email? So again, this was answered. This was the topic we approached last week, and tried to make sure that everyone was aware of the resource that's available related to unemployment, so that you knew, and we weren't sure where program closures were happening. We since then have been informed by government that certain programs needed to close. And so yes, the answer is that you are eligible if you have used your paid sick time and your vacation time, that you are eligible to apply for unemployment. When you go, you will make sure, you need to make sure that you indicate that you are applying due to COVID-19. Otherwise, they have no way of knowing that that is the reason for your application, and all of those provisions that have been lifted are related to COVID-19 specifically. So you want to make sure that you indicate that on your application. Otherwise, it's very important for you to indicate that. Otherwise, you may not be able to experience the exemption for some of the restrictions that are in place normally for unemployment. And then the final question that I have for me is, again, no PTO accrued yet. Thank you for all of your communication and efforts during this difficult time. I'm aware that you suggested employees without benefits apply for unemployment. The salaried employee, however, they're not kicked in, their PTO has not gotten kicked in yet, meaning they're not eligible for their PTO yet. And so again, our response is that we are advancing sick time, paid sick time, that will be available to all employees who accrue or earn sick time. There are some full-time as well as part-time employees that their program plans do earn sick time. And even if you are within your first 90 days of employment, you began to accrue time upon your start date, that time will be made accessible to you due to this crisis in advance. So you are able to use that sick time that you would have accrued through December, or even if you are in your first 90 days. If you are applying for unemployment because you've exhausted the sick time and your paid time off as previously indicated, and your program has closed or your hours have been reduced, then you should apply for unemployment and indicate in your application COVID-19. If your program has not closed, if your hours have not been reduced and you have chosen to not work, that will affect your eligibility for unemployment benefits. I think that the next question, I think that's it, actually. That was all the questions that came in. Thank you guys so much. Again, thank you. I'm glad I saw some of the chats that the FAQ that came out was helpful to people. So I'm really glad that you were able to get that and to access it. And hopefully pass that along, as that information I think is extremely important. I think that it's important for us to try to find ways to minimize the disruption in income as much as possible. So with the combination of what we're able to do as an organization, as well as what the government is able to do, that is our hope in trying to get this information out to you guys as soon as possible, to make sure that you have as little disruption as possible. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you so much for being patient and sending your questions in. Please keep them coming. Your question you may think just applies to you, but there's lots of other people who may share the same question. So it's helpful for us to understand those things. And I'm turning it over to Sean.
I'm actually going to take the mic from here, Alicia. So we have about 15 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes left of our call. There were a couple other topics that we wanted to cover before we close out. So I'm going to actually toss it over to Brandon, who's going to give us an update on program closures, so all on the call have a sense as to where we are in regards to modifying our programs. Brandon?
Yep. Thank you, Marco. This is Brandon York, CPO for IDD Services. And Bernie and Sandy, I want to thank them for all their work, and thank you guys for getting the information to them quickly. We've been tracking any closures or modifications to services. And I'll just quickly report that all of our day programs at this point in time, as far as facilities, have been closed. The day programs are offering modified services in creative ways, and we appreciate all of your efforts in that, working with state funders and with the RHD folks here and Edwin's team to be able to offer community-based one-on-one services and other virtual services through telehealth, iPad, iPhone, face-to-face, things like that. So thank you for that. Also, all of our school services have been temporarily suspended. Obviously, with schools closed, they're not able to go to schools to do that. Once again, we are offering modified in-home services and virtual services. So we are still able to attend to the needs of our participants. So I thank you for your creativity and your patience and people's willingness to look at other ways of offering very much needed support services. Our admin offices, as you are aware, have been mostly closed across the company. We're all on modified schedules. Most of you have given us rotations where we have people available several days a week in case someone absolutely has to go to the office for something, that they have someone there available to them. But essentially, for all real purposes, the offices have been closed. If your offices, for some reason, are not in that mode of thinking, make sure you reach out to your supervisor and let them know, and they will work with you on working through that modified rotation schedule. Our newspaper, One Step Away, has also temporarily suspended service. So if any of you happen to get those updates or those newsletters from them, you won't be seeing that for a bit until we get this figured out. And then finally, outpatient services are also on modified schedules. So modified schedules, telehealth, and other virtual opportunities to be able to address the support needs of our clients. All of our, that being said, those are the primary closures and modifications to support. But our residential, our group homes, supported living, shared living, life sharing, and companion models are all still in service. And you're doing a great job. And I would echo the statement of my peers in saying you guys are providing outstanding service and outstanding support of not only your participants, but also each other. Keep up the great work, and we thank you very much. We'll continue to update this list as we go along, and we'll let you know of any other closures. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. It's Tara Drennan, Vice President of Business Technology. I wanted to give you a quick update on communication tools that are available today. This week, we made 3 new communication tools available for people working remotely to still connect. The first one is Microsoft Teams. Next one is Google Duo. And we also made WhatsApp available this week. That goes to our list of communication tools we've already provided, including Zoom, Video, FaceTime, and our audio conference lines. We will continue to make additional lines available as we research more apps. We are also working in partnership with Linda and the BH behavioral health teams so that we can help find additional telehealth tools to use. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. We'll now pass the mic to Linda Donovan, who will also give an update regarding additional avenues for information. Linda, you are now up. First name is Linda. First name is Linda. Last name is Donovan. Brian, were you able to capture that information?
Hi, this is Brian. Linda, I don't see your account. How are you listed on here? Can you just write it down in the chat? L. Donovan. Okay, thank you. Because I'm not seeing a Linda. Let me bring you up. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, good. I'm sorry, apologize for that delay. I just wanted to share a bit of information about how we are trying to manage the extreme flow of information that is coming to all of us from so many different ways. Some of it's conflicting, some of it's, everything seems to be urgent. So what we're trying to do is throughout the week have a flow of information in the way that we're sharing and partnering together to problem solve. So this meeting on Mondays, a high-level meeting, general updates, and also generating questions. What we're doing then with the leadership of the service line directors is having a follow-up meeting on Tuesday to really talk about those particulars. What does that mean for us this week in the shelter system around PPE? What does that mean for us with our mobile work? What does that mean in IDD systems? So we're really trying to break that out into smaller groups and work on that. Each of the service line directors then, within 24 hours, cascades that information to each unit director as one tool of breaking into even further smaller groups to try and work on the challenges that we're facing for that particular day and that particular week. The end of each day, we are trying to do a summary of the main things that have come in, the documents that are needed, what's been posted to the COVID website, what different funders have stated about expectations and availability of funding. So we're really trying to put that for our leadership into a summary at the end of each day. We've also reached out to the Unit Director Steering Committee, incredibly valuable resource, and they have posed some questions. We've tried to respond to that and are working with that as another way of just sharing information. We're trying to do these separate meetings in our each service line. The health centers have been extremely helpful to us in figuring out what approaches we should be taking. And then behavioral health and IDD, again, are using their individual systems to try and further the information. The last thing that I would say too is that this is the system we set up last week as everything really started escalating. If it is not enough, we can change it. If you have needs that aren't being met or questions still that because it's so new aren't answered at the unit level, escalate it. We have excellent partners, our HR business partners, risk, legal, your service line directors are all there to help you. So keep sending your questions. We know they are coming from the place of trying to do our best work. And as everyone else said, thank you very much for everything that's happening across the corporation.
Thank you, Linda. And I just wanted to build on some of the thoughts that Linda has shared, particularly the ever-changing environment that we are working within and trying to make sure that we are adapting and adjusting as we go along the way. And to be able to do that, we also need to be thinking ahead, right? And planning and making sure that we have process in place that allows us to, as many organizations are trying to do, try to get ahead of this. It's a challenge because I think many organizations, including ourselves, are trying to keep up and catch up with the daily changes that are happening. But as you heard on this call, we are very focused on making sure that we are preparing our staff for potential needs for quarantine and isolation. We're looking at hazardous pay because we know that that will be necessary. We're looking at other opportunities for us to support staff through PTO or other time while we continue to go through this crisis together. It will take us working together collaboratively, communicating with each other in order to see through what we need to be doing. So we do have a committee that meets every day that really is addressing the immediate needs, the current needs, and we're also looking ahead to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our staff and the folks that we support every day as well. We are continuing to manage what our funders are communicating to us, what federal, state, and local government is sharing with us as well, and what opportunities they're sharing with us in ways that they will be supporting us as we go through this process together. We will begin to start to focus on the financial component of what we are working within, primarily to make sure that we can keep cash moving, cash in and cash out, as well as making sure that we understand what funds are available to assist in the various needs that we have. So know that we are on it, that we are focused on what is needed today, as well as trying to prepare for what we know is going to, what the needs are going to be as we move forward. So with that, I am going to close this out today. And as we've said throughout the call, many of us, and I'll reiterate it, and that is our thanks. The thanks for everybody, our frontline staff, our back office staff, all of our staff throughout the country for what you're doing during this pandemic to keep everyone in our community well and safe. So we appreciate everything that everybody is doing, and our commitment continues to be yourselves, your families, and the people we support each day. So as we've said, things continue to move quickly. Continue to ask your questions. Communication is going to be really important as we continue down this path together. Visit the RHD COVID-19 website, whether it's through Lawson or Acta. We are trying to make that as user-friendly as possible, and that is where all the information that we're sharing is centrally located. So I encourage staff to go out, get familiar with what information is available out on our website. Talk to your supervisor, your manager, your director. Again, this is a great opportunity for us to really embrace who we are as an organization and really look throughout the whole organization for opportunities to collaborate and work together to ensure that our staff are getting what is needed. So again, talk with your supervisor, your manager, your director. We will be continuing to have these calls on a weekly basis on Mondays from 12:30 to 2. So keep your questions coming, and we will be responding to those questions as we continue to meet and as we go through each day together as well. So again, I ask you all to take a deep breath, work together to support each other during this, and have hope. We say it often, and it's no better time than right now, that together we are better. Together we are RHD. So stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Almost done.